Hi, Room 6. This is our third video for our lesson today. So you should have already watched the first two videos that Miss Millon posted. And if you go back to the distance learning website, you'll notice it says here, watch video on adaptations, and then watch lesson 1 by Miss Millon. And that lesson is really important because I do go over a little bit more about what adaptations are. So in this lesson, I'm going to model for you guys how I might find information and do some research today with my animal. So you can use this video and this lesson to help you guys before you start researching your own animal. So today your assignment is slide 12. So what you want to do before I ever start researching is I read the prompt and I look for the questions that I need to focus on for the day and the questions I need to have in my head as I research. So for slide 12, it says today you guys are going to be researching adaptations. Use this page to take notes about your animal's adaptations. What physical characteristics does your animal have that helps it to survive? What instincts? Okay, so what I do first is I highlight the question in the prompt. So our question that we're going to focus on today, there's actually, 2 to 3. It says, what physical characteristics does your animal have that helps it to survive? So I'm going to highlight that. It also says, what instincts? And then I'm going to also highlight the part that it says, take notes about your animal's adaptations. So if you'd like to highlight, you just have to double click, move the cursor over the parts that you want to highlight, and then you click on this little, it almost looks like a crayon, and it says highlight color, and I always use yellow. So that helps me when I'm researching. I go back and forth between my source and the slide, and it helps me to remember what to keep in my mind and what to search for as I'm reading. So we're really thinking about what does my animal do to survive in the wild? What changes does it have, or what special features does it have on its body that help it to survive in the wild? Or what behavioral adaptations does it have that help it to survive in the wild? So what I'm going to do is I'm focusing my animal as the echidna. So what I would do if I was a student is I would go first off, I would go to the distance learning website and click on reading and writing. And this is where you guys can find a link to all the websites that we can, some of the websites we can use for our sources. Okay, so guess what? Some of you guys might be looking on these sources and you might not be able to find information on your animal. I know a couple of you guys have mentioned that. And with my echidna, I've noticed I've gone to almost every single source and I found a lot of information from like 1 to 2 sources, especially the database down at the bottom. But I want to find more information from multiple sources. So if you can't find a ton of information on your animal with the sources that Miss Millon has given you, they're also on slide 5, then what I would do and what I'm going to show you guys today is I would go to maybe like Google and I would type in a keyword that relates to the research we're going to do today. So remember I had you guys work on slide 7 last week, and you should have come up with some keywords that you can use for your research report. Keywords are certain words or phrases that are specific to your topic, and they'll help you find what you're looking for. So good researchers always brainstorm those keywords that they're going to focus on to find more information. So because I was looking at the sources and I couldn't find a ton of information on these ones, I'm going to look elsewhere today. So I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to use this keyword echidna's adaptations, because that is what I'm going to focus on today. So you can type that in right here. Make sure you obviously focus on your own animal, but I'm going to type that in here and see if I can find more information. I'm not going to use Wikipedia. I'm not going to look at the first thing that pops up. I want to be careful about where I'm choosing my information. So this is where you guys might have to look at the actual like website URL and pay close attention to, like, is it a .com, is it a .org, is it a .gov? .gov and .edu websites are very good resources to use because they are a lot like the EDUs are most of the time published by colleges or schools, and .orgs usually come from organizations. So just be careful about where you pick your information from, thinking about what we learned last week about really paying attention to the source. So I kind of looked through here. I went to a few websites. I noticed like some of the .coms didn't seem super reputable. Remember .com, sometimes anybody can post. So you just want to be careful. Doesn't mean you can't use a .com, but you want to be careful about where you're getting the information from. So I found a website here, and it said Animal Fact Guide, and it says Short-Beaked Echidna Facts, Australian Animals. So I'm going to click here and see if this website seems reputable. and it seems like a good source to get information from. I kind of looked all around. I noticed they had a lot of information here. They had something about the author. She's actually written a book, and it seems like a pretty reputable site, a good site to get information from, especially because the author has written several books. And if you find something on the website that talks about the author, always read that, because we want to know who is writing this information and where am I getting this information from. So the author, she's actually an editor of an animal fact guide, and she's contributed to several books. She's also written a picture book relating about animals. So I feel like her information is probably going to be pretty valid. Okay, so I'm going to use this website today to find some information on my animals' adaptations. So the first thing I'm going to do is read through the article, and I'm going to think and stop after each section and go back to that research question and think about, is there anything in this section that relates to my animals' adaptations? Does the author tell me anything in this section about how my animal survives in the wild? Does the author tell me anything about their adaptations? Okay. All right, so I'm going to start reading and you guys can follow along. So it says short-beaked echidna. And I think it says, this is like their scientific name, Tachyglossus aculeatus. I think that's how you say it. Okay, sometimes called the spiny anteater, the short-beaked echidna, pronounced echidna. Oh, how interesting. I've been saying. Did you know that? No. Oh my gosh, sorry, Mr. Kyle, and I just learned something. I've been pronouncing it the wrong way. See, this is why we want to look at different sources as well. Pronounced echidna. Okay, good to know. Measures 30 to 45 centimeters, which is 13.5 to 17.5 inches long, and weighs 2 to 5 kilograms. Although it resembles a porcupine or a hedgehog, closer inspection of the echidna reveals some of the animal's more unusual traits. So I'm going to stop and think, did the author tell me anything there about the echidna's adaptations or anything more about how they survive in the wild? Not quite. There's a lot of interesting facts in there. I might go back and add some things about their description, because the author's describing like how much they weigh, how long they are, that they're similar, they look like a hedgehog or a porcupine, but they're not really telling me anything about their adaptations. So I'm going to continue reading. Nothing in that section is relevant to my research questions today. Okay, so it said echidnas are monotremes, or mammals that lay eggs. They have a lower body temperature than other animals, maintaining temperatures around 31 to 32 degrees Celsius, which is about 87.8 to 89.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Similar to reptiles, their legs protrude outwards and then downwards, resulting in a waddling effect when they walk. So this section, I'm going to stop and think, what did I just learn? Well, I learned that they are mammals that lay eggs, so that's an unusual fact. They have a lower body temperature, so they have a lower body temperature than other mammals, and I'm wondering why that is. The author doesn't really tell us about that, about why that is, and that they're similar to reptiles because of the way their body looks. Now, these are interesting facts, but I haven't read how they help them to survive in the wild. So I'm going to continue reading, because there's nothing there that really tells me more about their adaptations. It's kind of telling me about some unique features that they have. Okay. 2 types of fur cover their body. A coat of short, coarse hair insulates echidnas from the cold, while longer hairs act as spines, protecting them from predators. Their sharp, creamy-colored spines are 50 millimeters in length and are composed of keratin, the same material that makes up our fingernails. So I'm going to stop after this section and I'm going to think to myself, what did I just learn? Is there anything in there that relates to my animal's adaptations? Yes. The author told me here some interesting facts that help them to survive. Well, what did the author tell us here that helps the echidna to survive? Well, the author told me, I'm going to put this in my own words, I'm not going to copy, but right here they said that they have this short, coarse hair that insulates them from the cold. So what does that really mean? If I'm going to take those notes, I'm not going to copy paste this. I want to make sense of it so that I understand what the author's telling me here about their adaptation. So what this really means in my own words is that they have short they have this, one of their adaptations is they have this really short hair that helps keep them warm, because it says here it insulates echidnas from the cold, right? So I'm guessing that maybe if they're in, so I'm thinking to put this part in my own words, I have to think of what that really means. And I'll tell you guys, this is something I really have to stop and think about too. I have to really read that fact over and over again to really think about, like, how can I put this in my own words? So if they're saying that that it has a coat of short, coarse hair that insulates the echidnas from the cold, to me, what this means is that they have short and maybe we could say short, thick hair that helps keep them warm, especially because maybe they live in some colder areas. So I'm going to take that, and I want you to notice I'm not copy pasting. I'm taking it and putting it in my own words. And you might have to go back and forth between the article and your note taking to help you do that. Okay, so I'm going to put that here because that seems like an adaptation. It helps them to survive in the wild. So I'll put echidnas have short, thick hair that keeps their bodies warm in cold, maybe we'll put in cold environments, right? Or you could put in their in cold habitats, or their habitat. Okay, so that is an adaptation. And I really had to stop and think about that paragraph and if any of that information was relevant to what I'm trying to find, and it is. There was another adaptation that the author mentions there. I don't know if you guys caught it, but they also said that they have longer hair as well, that act as spines, and it protects them from predators. So I want to think and stop and go, how can I maybe switch those words around or use some synonyms there? How can I switch this around a little bit and use some different words to put this in Miss Millon's words, not to copy what the author said. So it says longer hairs act as spines protecting them from predators. Well, maybe I'll put here that the echidna also has hairs that are long that protect them from predators. Or I could put that echidnas have spines that help to protect them. And maybe instead of saying predators, I can say from other animals in the wild. Right, so sometimes you really have to think about what other words you could use so that we don't copy word for word what the author says. Okay, so these spines, and you can actually tell that even from, like, if you just look at images of your animal, you might be able to tell some of, figure out some of their adaptations just by looking at the image. I mean, you can see in this image here that these spines, which is interesting, is they're actually longer pieces, these, noticing like longer pieces of hair. They use them to protect themselves, and it's pretty obvious there that if an animal was to walk up to it, they would use that to help protect them and to help them survive. Okay, so as you guys are reading, what you want to do is thinking about what Miss Millon has been doing, is stopping after each section and really asking yourselves those questions. Okay, so I'm going to read one more section today. I'm going to practice paraphrasing and practice figuring out if there's anything in this section that's important and relevant to their adaptations. Always keeping that question in my mind. Consuming ants, termites, grubs, larvae, and worms, the echidna is specially adapted. That's a key word. I'm thinking this is going to tell me more about adaptations. It is specially adapted to hunt its prey. It has a pointy snout that can sense electrical signals from insect bodies. Okay, I'm going to stop there. This definitely is relevant. It's telling me it has this special adaptation. Well, what is this special adaptation that it has? Well, it's talking about how it's an adaptation that it uses to eat and to hunt. And it says here that it has a pointy snout. So I'm guessing a snout would be more like a nose, right? That can sense electrical signals from insect bodies. Once it detects its prey, it uses its long, sharp claws and short, sturdy limbs to dig into the soil and expose the invertebrates. So their snout, if I'm going to put this in my own words, what is it that their nose is really helping them to do? Well, their nose is special because it can sense these electrical signals from their prey, from these bodies that are these insect bodies. Okay, so let me take that and put it into my own words. That's very interesting. Echidnas have a special, and I'm going to use a different word besides snout. I'm going to use nose. So I want to switch this around a little bit, put in my own words. So they have a special nose, and what does that nose do? It can sense, and I'm trying to think of electrical signals. That one, sometimes you might notice I might have to just include that in there. So it can maybe notice, I'll say it can notice electrical signals, or maybe I'll just put that in there, electrical signals from their prey. So I'm going to change that around a little bit. So I'm not going to copy insect bodies. I might just say their prey. And we can infer after what I've taught you guys that their prey would be ants, termites, you know, maybe some of those larvae, things like that. So this actually helps them to find their food, right? Almost like how when we might use our nose to smell food, they're also using their nose to smell food. It helps them to really find their food. So I'm going to put that here, them to find their food. Okay, it's interesting. And then they also tell us that once it actually finds the prey, it says once it detects the prey, the echidna uses its long, sharp claws and short, sturdy limbs to dig into the soil. So those long, sharp claws, I'm thinking the author doesn't say this is an adaptation, but if you think about it, they need those to survive. So I'm going to include that in there as well, is that they have these long claws. Maybe I'll switch those words around a little bit, that help them dig. And maybe I'll put from the soil, right? I'm guessing if the echidna didn't have those really long, sharp claws, they might not be able to dig out all of those insects that they eat. So they need that to survive, okay? And one thing I do want to mention to you guys is just make your font smaller. You guys should have a lot of information on adaptations. So I'm going to make it all the way like size, I don't know, size 11 or 12, so that I can fit a lot on here. Okay, so I'm going to keep reading about my echidna. I learned a lot today, including how to properly pronounce the animal's name. But I'm going to keep reading, and I'm going to keep looking for information. I'm going to go to other sources. I'm going to find as much information as I can today on my animal's adaptations. So please think about what Miss Millon did as I was reading from a source, how I stopped and I thought to myself, does this relate to my research, and how I had to really figure out what information was important versus what information was not important.